This is the update. Thank you so much for staying on with us. Just about now, we will be discussing, we're hosting in studio the Deputy Director General at the Public-Private Dialogue Forum, PPDF, and we're discussing infrastructure development in Zambia. And we do have Madam Jacqueline Chishimba. Good to have you on the update.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
I'm very sure that it's been a busy period, for the institution. But let's get started with understanding why, obviously, we do have, a technical working group established around infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting the PPDF again this morning. Firstly, the President, as you are aware, President Hichilema attaches great importance to infrastructure development. And in the last few years, especially the last 2.5 years, we've seen how infrastructure development has sort of been accelerated in the country. And for some, the notion is that it's because we are heading to elections and then now we're in election season, but which hasn't been the case. Ideally, it's because we had, of course, to restructure our debt, we had to align the local economy, and thereafter now go back into infrastructure development. After the setup of the technical working group, that's especially the PPDF in general, after its setup, a number of technical working groups were actually instituted. Infrastructure was not there, and the reason was because we had to focus on, say, finance and banking and financial services. We had to focus on energy, all those that were major priority to allow industry to start moving. And then after the income comes in, we've now set up the infrastructure technical working group. And why that technical working group has been set up has a number of reasons. Amongst them, the platform, it's a platform for government and private sector to collaborate on how Zambia's infrastructure development agenda will now be implemented in the country going forward. There's actually a big plan going forward, and we're talking 2026 after election, all the way into 2030, 2031, thereabout. The platform also identifies and resolves infrastructure problems. So we're trying now to move from not just identifying the problems, but coming up with the solutions and implementing those solutions. Among other things are, of course, to improve the policies, regulations around infrastructure in Zambia, to look at what policies anchor the infrastructure development process in the country. And are these policies up to date with what is happening in the world today? If not, we review. But remember, on the dialogue table is both the public sector and the private sector, because now decisions have to be made together. And the President has continued to emphasize this. Government will no longer make decisions alone. So any policies, any regulations around infrastructure development in Zambia will be reviewed, replaced, or enacted after consultation with the two parties, the government and the private sector. And this is happening at the Infrastructure Technical Working Group being housed or anchored by the PPDF.
Yeah. Have we recorded any progress in as far as infrastructure development is concerned?
Yes, we have. We have recorded a lot of progress, and I will read out. Firstly, we have continued investment in the roads, bridges, airports, and border infrastructure. I think from about early last year to as recent as a few months this year, we've seen commissioning of this infrastructure development. The Zambia's first concrete road is in Kitwe. That's a plus for this government and for the private sector, because government is working with private sector on all this infrastructure development. We've seen the progress right now on the Lusaka and Ndola dual carriageway. We've seen a number of township roads and roads that are connecting roads being worked on, even in Lusaka. There's been upgrades on key airports, including Simon Mwansaka-Pwepo International Airport. We've seen development of infrastructure in the newly created districts. So the first thing, of course, that you find is the district office, the provincial office, all that infrastructure has gone up. We've seen the construction of clinics, annexes, maternity annexes. If you look at the health sector, all that is infrastructure development. We've seen even trade increased and improved trade facilitation through, for instance, the upgraded Nakonde one-stop border post. So the infrastructure now has actually increased more trade, and because most of the processes also are digital, it's making work and trade easier. So what government is doing now is to focus on delivering infrastructure more efficiently and sustainably. And I just want to sort of explain a little bit. When we say sustainably, what we're also talking about is we want to move away from infrastructure just being constructed. So infrastructure has been constructed and we forget about it. We are now putting in place plans to ensure that these infrastructures that are going up are actually maintained. Yes, they are looked after, they are safeguarded. And these are some of the issues right now that are on discussion at the PPD in the Infrastructure Technical Working Group. How can Zambia start thinking like we did in the past, just after independence, how we looked after our infrastructure, maintained infrastructure? You'll notice that even some of the buildings that we have today, public buildings, are not per se not able to be used again. We don't even need to construct new ones. What needs to happen is just a good maintenance schedule or plan. How do you look after this building? We had the situation of the sewer system at the University of Zambia. Had maintenance been consistent, all those trees having roots to go into the sewer and block the sewer line would have not happened. So whilst government pushes all this infrastructure agenda, in there also we now start seeing plans of efficiency, sustainability, and safeguard.
How critical is private sector participation in infrastructure development?
It's very critical because government does not have all the financing for all this infrastructure. There's no one government anywhere in the world that will tell you that they'll finance all the infrastructure development. So the private sector comes in now to offer capital, technical expertise, innovation, and technology, which is very important, and then also efficient delivery, because private sector can easily mobilize human resource, they can mobilize technical resource, they can mobilize the funding. So you find that infrastructure is now efficient. You also find that the PPPs, that's the public-private partnerships that we need to enter into, sort of help bridge the infrastructure financing gap, because then you have government coming in with its policies, its agenda and vision on infrastructure. Then the private sector comes in with funding, comes in with efficient delivery, and they also help to ensure that after that project has been handed over, both parties win. No one is a loser.
Any challenges, and how is the technical working group addressing these challenges?
There are lots of challenges, Jason, in infrastructure development, and some of them are legacy challenges. Like I just mentioned, one, the lack of maintaining our infrastructure is a legacy one, which now there's going to be a lot of education and awareness created around how we maintain. Other challenges, of course, include the high cost of financing this infrastructure development. It's quite high. So I think you've seen how government now tends to work with the cooperating partners and bring in the private sector, but at all times trying to look for sources of financing that are much cheaper. And these challenges are being discussed at the technical working group and solutions are being sought. There are also delays in approvals because of a number of regulatory processes. So that's where also the technical working group and the PPD are sitting together. We are facilitating, of course, government and private sector sitting and saying, where do we cut the red tape? If you want to construct a bridge and you've been given a license to construct a bridge, you'll probably find that if you were supposed to start that construction, say your license has been given in January and you're supposed to start in June, you might not even commence. It might take another year because there are all these licensing processes. And now the Infrastructure Technical Working Group and the team, working together with other line ministries, ZEMA and the like, are now trying to cut the red tape.
Okay.
To say, how do we now merge and reduce all these processes so that we have efficiency?
In the interest of time, not to gag you, I want to hear you share with us, your key messages, as we conclude.
So I will speak from the president's voice. Yes, our chairman. He's our chairman at the PPD. The president has key messages that we ride on. And mostly its infrastructure is central to Zambia's economic transformation. We are lagging behind on a lot of infrastructure, even in the transport sector. So we are pushing an agenda that it's important that private sector and both public sector understand that without proper infrastructure, our economy cannot transform. Government and the private sector must work together. That's number 2. Number 3 is the focus is on practical reforms, not just identifying problems. So we at the PPD, regardless of which sector, are just not looking at problems. We are looking at solutions and implementing those solutions as quickly as possible. Improve efficiency, sustainability, and investment. That's another key message. Increase opportunities for local businesses. You've seen the passing of the local content bill. In the infrastructure sector, both public sector and private sector are saying, let's have as many Zambian contractors as possible on these construction sites. Let's capacitate them. NCC, how can you train more people to take up construction work in the country and grow industry? And then deliver infrastructure so that you create jobs, support business, and improve the lives of all Zambians. So our goal is to move from dialogue to action, from ideas to implementation, even in the Infrastructure Technical Working Group.
That's Madam Jacqueline Chishimba, Deputy Director General at the Public-Private Dialogue Forum, PPDF, discussing infrastructure development in Zambia. This is The Update. Stay with us.